My husband divorced me while I was unconscious in a hospital bed. He thought I had nothing. My husband didn't know I made 100,000 a year. He divorced me while I was in the hospital bed, and then he tried to destroy everything I had ever loved. My name is Amelia Hart, and this is the story of how I lost everything I thought I needed and found a strength so deep inside me that even I didn't know it existed. Let me take you back to the beginning. It was a Tuesday. The kind of Tuesday that feels like any other Tuesday. I was folding laundry in the living room. Mia, my 8-year-old daughter, was doing homework at the coffee table. Leo, my 5-year-old son, was building a tower of blocks that I knew would soon fall. Derek, my husband of 11 years, was at work. He was always at work, or so I thought. The pain started as a dull ache in my lower right side. I ignored it. Mothers ignore pain. We push through headaches and backaches and the exhaustion that lives in our bones like a second skeleton. But this pain didn't stay dull. It grew teeth. It became a sharp, tearing sensation that made me drop the shirt I was folding. I remember that shirt. It was Derek's blue work shirt. It landed on the floor and I couldn't bend down to pick it up because bending felt like someone was stabbing me with a hot knife. Mia looked up. Her eyes were wide. "Mommy, you look funny." "I'm fine, baby," I said, but I wasn't fine, I was sweating. My hands were shaking. I tried to stand up and my legs gave way. I fell to my knees. Leo started crying because he didn't understand why Mommy was on the floor. Mia ran to the neighbor's house. She was always so brave, my Mia. She ran faster than I had ever seen her run. The neighbor, an older woman named Mrs. Alvarez, called an ambulance. She held my hand while we waited. She told me to breathe. She told me everything would be okay. I wanted to believe her. But I had learned long ago that okay is a moving target. What feels okay today might feel like drowning tomorrow. The ambulance came. The paramedics were kind. They asked me questions I couldn't answer because the pain was a living thing inside me, roaring. I remember the lights of the ambulance, red and white, flashing against the gray sky. I remember thinking that Derek should be here. I remember calling his phone. It went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I called a third time. He answered, but his voice was cold. "What is it, Amelia? I'm in a meeting." "I'm in an ambulance," I said. "I think something is really wrong." There was a pause. Then he said, "I'll come when I can." He didn't say, "I love you." He didn't say, "Stay strong." He said, "I'll come when I can." And then he hung up. The emergency room was chaos. Bright lights, loud voices. A doctor with tired eyes pressed on my stomach and I screamed. He said something about a ruptured appendix. He said something about surgery. A nurse put a needle in my arm and the world went soft and blurry. The last thing I remember before the operating room was a nurse asking for my emergency contact. I said Derek's name. I gave his number. And then I went under. I woke up in a hospital room. The walls were beige. The window showed a parking lot. There was a machine beeping next to me. My throat was dry. My stomach felt like someone had sewn a zipper into it. I tried to sit up and a nurse appeared. She was a young woman with kind eyes and a name tag that said Margaret. "You're awake," she said. "The surgery went well. You had a ruptured appendix. We had to remove it and clean out the infection. You're going to be here for a few days." "My husband," I said, "is he here?" Margaret's face did something small, a flicker, a hesitation. "He was here briefly. He left a document for you." She handed me a folded piece of paper. I remember thinking it was a get well card. Derek wasn't good with words, but sometimes he would buy a card and sign it. I opened the paper with clumsy fingers. My IV tugged at my hand. It wasn't a card. It was a petition for divorce, filed that morning, while I was unconscious, while my body was still healing from surgery, while my children were at home wondering why their mother hadn't come back. I read the words again and again. Irreconcilable differences. Petitioner requests full custody. Petitioner requests exclusive use of marital residence. Petitioner requests that respondent pay petitioner's attorney fees. He wanted me to pay his lawyer. While I was in a hospital bed, with stitches in my belly, I didn't cry. I couldn't. Some part of my brain just shut down. I handed the paper back to Margaret. She looked at it and her kind eyes turned hard, not at me, at the paper, at the man who had sent it. "Do you have someone I can call for you?" she asked. I thought for a moment. My mother was gone. She had passed away 3 years ago from cancer. My father was a ghost. My friends had drifted away over the years because Derek didn't like them. He said they were bad influences. He said they made me difficult. So I let them go, one by one, until I had no one. But then I remembered Samira. Samira and I had been roommates in college. She was studying law while I was studying computer science. We had lost touch after I married Derek, but I still had her number buried in my old phone. I had kept it because Samira was the kind of person who would drop everything for a friend. I had never needed to test that theory, until now. "Yes," I said to Margaret, "there's someone." Margaret let me use the hospital phone. My hands were still shaking as I dialed. Samira answered on the second ring. Her voice was warm and familiar, like a song I hadn't heard in years. "Hello?" "Samira," I said. "It's Amelia, Amelia Hart." A pause, then Amelia. "Oh my God, I haven't heard your voice in so long. Are you okay? You don't sound okay." I told her everything. The surgery, the divorce papers, the fact that Derek hadn't visited, the fact that I was alone in a hospital room with nothing but a machine beeping and a window showing a parking lot. I told her about my secret income, about the $100,000 a year I had been hiding, about the account under my maiden name. When I finished, Samira was quiet for a long time. Then she said something I will never forget. "Amelia, listen to me very carefully. Do not sign anything. Do not agree to anything. Do not talk to Derek without me on the phone. I am driving to you tonight. I am going to be your lawyer. And we are going to win." She did drive that night, 3 hours from Cleveland. She walked into my hospital room at 11 p.m. wearing sweatpants and a determined expression. She hugged me carefully, avoiding my stitches. And then she sat down in the chair next to my bed and started taking notes. "Tell me everything," she said. "And I mean everything. The good, the bad, the ugly. Don't leave anything out." So I did. I told her about the 11 years of Derek controlling every dollar I spent. About the joint account he watched like a hawk. About the way he would ask where I had been if I was 5 minutes late from the grocery store. About the time he threw a plate against the wall because dinner was cold. About the time he grabbed my arm so hard it left bruises and then said I was being dramatic. About the time he told Mia that mommy was too sensitive and that she shouldn't be like me. Samira's face grew darker with each word. By the time I finished, she was gripping her pen so hard her knuckles were white. "He's been emotionally abusing you for years," she said. "And now he's trying to take your children while you're lying in a hospital bed. This isn't a divorce, Amelia. This is an attack. What do I do? First, you rest, you heal. I will handle the legal side. Second, I need you to give me access to that secret account. Every statement, every transaction. We need to prove that this money was earned entirely by you with no contribution from Derek. Third, I'm hiring a private investigator. If Derek filed for divorce this quickly and this cruelly, there's a reason. And I think that reason has a name." She was right. The reason did have a name. Brooke, but I didn't know that yet. All I knew was that I was lying in a hospital bed, my marriage was over, and the only person in my corner was a college friend I hadn't spoken to in nearly a decade. That should have felt lonely. Instead, it felt like the first honest thing that had happened to me in years. The next few days were a blur of pain medication, physical therapy, and phone calls with Samira. She filed a motion to delay the divorce proceedings until I was medically cleared. She subpoenaed Derek's phone records and bank statements, and she introduced me to Marcus, the private investigator. Marcus was a retired police officer in his 60s. He had gray hair, a gentle voice, and eyes that missed nothing. He came to my hospital room on the third day. He sat in the same chair Samira had used. He didn't take notes. He just listened. "Tell me about Derek," he said. "What does he do? Where does he go? Who does he spend time with?" I told him everything I knew, which wasn't much. Derek had always been secretive about his life outside the house. He said work was work and home was home, and never the two should meet. I had accepted that. I had told myself it was healthy to have boundaries. Now I wondered what he had been hiding behind those boundaries. Marcus nodded. "I'll start tomorrow. In the meantime, don't delete anything. Don't throw anything away. Every text message, every email, every receipt. It might matter." He left. I lay in the dark hospital room and stared at the ceiling. The machine beeped. The parking lot lights glowed through the window. I thought about Mia and Leo. They were at Derek's mother's house. Carol had come to visit me once. She had stood in the doorway of my room and looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Pity, disappointment, both. I don't know what happened between you and my son, she had said, but he's a good man. He wouldn't do this without a reason. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her and say, the reason is that he's a coward who waited until I was unconscious to stab me in the back. But I didn't. I just nodded and said, I understand. That's what I always did. I understood. I accommodated. I made myself small so Derek could feel big. That was over now. I didn't know what the new Amelia looked like yet, but I knew she wasn't small. On the fourth day, Marcus called Samira, and Samira called me. He found something, Samira said. Her voice was tight. Amelia, I need you to be sitting down. I'm in a hospital bed. I am literally already sitting down. Derek has been seeing another woman for over a year. Her name is Brooke. She's a Pilates instructor. Marcus has photos of them together at restaurants, hotels, even a weekend trip to Chicago. He paid for everything with your joint credit card. I closed my eyes. The funny thing was, I wasn't surprised. Some part of me had known, had felt it in the way Derek stopped looking at me, in the way he came home later and later, in the way he smelled different, like perfume that wasn't mine. I had told myself I was imagining things. I had told myself I was being paranoid, but I wasn't. I was being betrayed. There's more, Samira said. Of course there is. Derek opened a secret bank account 6 months ago. He's been transferring small amounts from your joint account. Only about $5,000 total, but it's the intent that matters. He was preparing to leave you with nothing. I laughed. It was a hollow, broken sound. He didn't know about my account. He thought I had nothing. He was trying to steal the nothing I had. Yes, and now we're going to use that against him in court. Hidden assets, infidelity. Filing for divorce while you were medically incapacitated. This is not going to go well for him, Amelia. Good. I didn't feel good. I felt tired. I felt sad. I felt the weight of 11 years pressing down on my chest. But underneath all of that, there was something else. A tiny spark. A flicker of something that might grow into fire. Marcus sent the photos to my secure email. I looked at them that night when the nurse wasn't watching. Derek and Brooke outside a wine bar. Derek and Brooke holding hands in a park. Derek and Brooke walking into a hotel lobby. Brooke was pretty in a generic way. Blonde hair, tan skin. A smile that said she had never washed a dirty dish in her life. She looked like the kind of woman Derek always said he didn't want. The kind who wanted luxury this and luxury that. But apparently, he wanted her more than he wanted me. I saved every photo. I saved every receipt. I saved every text message Marcus managed to recover from Derek's old phone. And then I started planning. The first thing I did was open a new bank account in only my name. I transferred my secret money into it. $912,000 plus interest. That was what 8 years of freelance coding had earned me. 8 years of working in the basement after Derek fell asleep. 8 years of answering emails in the bathroom at the dental office. 8 years of being called lazy and unambitious by a man who didn't know I was building a fortune while he was snoring. The second thing I did was hire a forensic accountant to trace every dollar Derek had ever hidden. Samira knew someone. A woman named Alina who loved numbers more than people. Alina spent 3 days going through Derek's financial history. She found things Derek had forgotten about. A small inheritance from his grandmother that he had never mentioned. A side business selling sports memorabilia online. A PayPal account with over $20,000 in transactions. Derek thought he was smart. He thought he could hide money from the court and from his wife. But he was just another man who underestimated the women around him. The third thing I did was the hardest. I called my children. Mia answered the phone. Her voice was small and cautious, like she was talking to a stranger. Mommy, when are you coming home? Soon, baby. Mommy has to get better first. Are you eating your vegetables? Are you brushing your teeth? Daddy says you're not coming back. He says you're sick in the head, not just in the tummy. I felt my heart crack. A real crack, like the sound of ice breaking on a frozen pond. Derek was poisoning my daughter against me. He was using my pain as a weapon. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive to Carol's house and take my children and never let Derek see them again. But I couldn't. Not yet. I had to be patient. I had to be smart. Daddy is wrong, Mia. Mommy loves you very much. I will see you soon. I promise. Okay, Mommy, I love you. I love you too, baby, more than anything. She hung up. I held the phone for a long time, listening to the dial tone. Then I called Samira. I want full custody, I said. I want supervised visitation. I want Derek to have to prove he's fit to be a father before he can be alone with them again. That's going to be a fight, Samira said. Judges don't like to take kids away from parents unless there's evidence of abuse or neglect. Then we'll give them evidence. Marcus said Derek has a temper. He's thrown things, he's punched walls. He grabbed my arm once hard enough to bruise. I never reported it because I was scared. But I'm not scared anymore. Do you have any witnesses? Mia saw him throw a plate once. She was 4. She still remembers. She still has nightmares. Samira was quiet. Then she said, I'll file a motion for a psychological evaluation of both parents. If Derek's temper shows up in the evaluation, the judge will take it seriously. Do it. The next week was a blur of legal motions, medical appointments, and late-night calls with Marcus. I was discharged from the hospital on the 8th day. Samira picked me up. She drove me to a small furnished apartment she had rented for me. It wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, a couch that smelled like cigarette smoke. But it was mine. Derek didn't have a key. Derek didn't even know the address. You need to stay off his radar, Samira said. He's going to try to provoke you. He's going to call and text and maybe even show up. Don't respond. Let every call go to voicemail. Save every message. You're building a case. I nodded. I didn't have the energy to argue. My stomach still hurt. My body was still healing. I lay down on the smelly couch and closed my eyes. I dreamed of Mia and Leo. They were running through a field of flowers. I was trying to catch them, but my legs wouldn't move. They got smaller and smaller until they disappeared. I woke up crying. Derek called that night. I let it go to voicemail. His voice was cold and controlled, like he was reading from a script. Amelia, this is ridiculous. You can't hide from me. We need to discuss custody. The kids miss you, but they're doing fine with Carol. I think it's best if they stay with me until you've recovered. Call me back. He didn't ask how I was feeling. He didn't mention the surgery. He didn't apologize for filing divorce papers while I was unconscious. He just wanted to take my children. I saved the voicemail. Then I called Samira. He's trying to take the kids, I said. He said they're doing fine with Carol and they should stay with him. He can't do that without a court order. You're still their mother. You have equal rights. But Amelia, you need to be careful. If he takes them and refuses to give them back, it could take weeks to get a court order for their return. Do you have a safe place to keep them? Not yet. But I will. The next morning, I went to IKEA. I bought beds for Mia and Leo. A table, chairs, dishes, towels. I spent $3,000 of my secret money. It was the first time I had ever spent money without asking permission. It felt like breathing fresh air after years underwater. I set up their room, pink sheets for Mia, blue for Leo. I put stuffed animals on their pillows. I hung their drawings on the wall. I wanted them to come home to a place that felt like love, not a temporary stop, not a battleground, a home. Then I called Carol. Carol answered on the first ring. Her voice was wary. Amelia. Carol, I'm better now. I'm out of the hospital. I want to see my children. Derek said you weren't stable. He said you might try to take them. Carol, I'm their mother. I have never hurt them. I have never neglected them. Derek is the one who filed for divorce while I was unconscious. Derek is the one who has been seeing another woman for over a year. I have photos, Carol. I have receipts. I have evidence. Do you really want to help a man like that keep children away from their mother? There was a long silence. Then Carol said, What other woman? I told her everything. Brooke's name, the hotel receipts, the weekend in Chicago, the credit card charges for romantic dinners while I was at home eating leftovers with the kids. Carol listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was crying. I didn't know, she said. He told me you were unstable. He told me you had mental problems. I believed him because he's my son, but I should have known. I should have seen. You saw what he wanted you to see. We all did, but now we know the truth. Please, Carol, let me see my children. Come get them tomorrow. I'll tell Derek they're with me. I cried after I hung up. Not sad tears. Relief. For the first time in weeks, something had gone right. Carol believed me. Carol would help me. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The next day, I drove to Carol's house. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. My stomach hurt from the surgery and from the nerves, but I kept driving. I parked in the driveway. I walked to the front door. Carol opened it before I could knock. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. "They're in the living room," she said. "They've missed you so much." Mia saw me first. She ran across the room and threw her arms around my waist. She was crying and laughing at the same time. Leo was slower. He looked at me like he wasn't sure I was real. Then his face crumpled and he ran to me too. I knelt down and held them both. I ignored the pain in my stitches. I held them and I didn't let go. "Mommy," Mia said into my shoulder. "Please don't go away again." "I'm not going anywhere, baby. Mommy is here. Mommy is staying." We stayed at Carol's for an hour. I packed the kids' clothes and toys and books. Carol helped me. She didn't say much, but her hands were gentle. When we were done, she hugged me. It was the first time she had ever hugged me like I was family. "Take care of them," she said. "And take care of yourself." "I will." I drove Mia and Leo to the apartment. They explored every room. They jumped on their new beds. They arranged their stuffed animals on the pillows. They drew pictures on the kitchen table. For a few hours, they were happy. For a few hours, we were a family again. But Derek wasn't going to let that last. He showed up that night. I don't know how he found the address. Maybe Carol told him. Maybe he hired his own investigator. All I know is that at 9 o'clock, there was a pounding on the front door. The kids were in their pajamas. Mia was reading a book. Leo was falling asleep on the couch. "Amelia, open the door." "I know you're in there." I looked through the peephole. Derek's face was red. His eyes were wild. He looked like a man who had been drinking. I didn't open the door. I called the police. "There's a man trying to break into my apartment," I said to the dispatcher. "He's my estranged husband. He's been drinking. My children are here." "Stay inside, ma'am. Officers are on their way." Derek kept pounding. He kept yelling. "You can't take my kids. They're mine. You think you can hide from me? You think you can win? I'll destroy you, Amelia. I'll make sure you never see them again." Mia started crying. Leo woke up and started crying too. I gathered them both in my arms and carried them to the back bedroom. I locked the door. I sat with my back against it and held my children and waited. The police arrived in 7 minutes. I heard them talking to Derek. I heard Derek yelling. I heard the sound of handcuffs, then a knock on the door, a police officer's voice. "Ma'am, it's safe to come out now." I opened the door. The officer was a woman with kind eyes. She looked at me holding my crying children and her face softened. "We're arresting him for disturbing the peace," she said. "We also smelled alcohol. He's going to spend the night in a cell. Do you want to press charges?" "Yes," I said. "I want a police report. I want everything documented." She nodded. "You did the right thing by calling us. Don't open the door for him again. Get a restraining order tomorrow." I got the restraining order. Samira filed the paperwork first thing in the morning. By noon, Derek was legally required to stay 500 feet away from me and the children. He could still have supervised visitation, but he couldn't come near us on his own. Derek was furious. He called Samira's office and left a voicemail that included words I won't repeat here. Samira saved the voicemail. She added it to the growing file of evidence. The psychological evaluation happened 2 weeks later. Derek and I each spent 3 hours with a court-appointed psychologist named Dr. Vargas. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a quiet voice. She asked me about my marriage, about Derek's temper, about the time he threw a plate, about the time he grabbed my arm, about the way he controlled money, about the way he isolated me from friends. She asked about the children, about their routines, about their fears, about their favorite foods and their nightmares and the way Leo said "mommy" like a prayer. She asked about my secret income, about why I hid it, about whether I was ashamed. "I wasn't ashamed," I said. "I was scared. I was scared that if Derek knew, he would take it, he would control it, he would use it to control me even more, so I kept it safe, for my children, for their future." Dr. Vargas nodded. She wrote something in her notebook. Then she said, "Do you love your husband, Amelia?" I thought about that question for a long time. Did I love Derek? I had loved someone once. Someone who brought me flowers and wrote me notes and told me I was a breath of fresh air. But that person had disappeared over the years, replaced by a man who watched my every dollar and grabbed my arm and threw plates against walls. "I loved who he used to be," I said, "or who I thought he was. But I don't love who he is now, And I don't think he loves me either. You don't file for divorce while someone is unconscious if you love them. Dr. Vargas wrote something else. Then she said, "Thank you, Amelia. That's all for today." Derek had his evaluation the next day. I don't know what he said. I don't know if he lied or told the truth or something in between. But Dr. Vargas's report, when it came out, was clear. Derek Hart exhibits patterns of controlling behavior, emotional volatility, and a lack of empathy. He minimizes his own aggressive actions while exaggerating his spouse's faults. He is not currently a candidate for unsupervised visitation with minor children. Recommendation: supervised visitation until he completes anger management therapy and parenting classes. I cried when Samira read me that report, not because I was sad, because I was relieved. The system had seen what I had lived with for 11 years. The system believed me. The custody hearing was scheduled for a month later. A month of waiting, a month of tense phone calls, a month of Derek's lawyers trying to negotiate a settlement. Samira advised me not to settle. "They're going to offer you something," she said. "Every week they'll offer you something, more money, more custody, more whatever they think you want. Don't take it. We're going to court. We're going to let a judge decide." Why? Wouldn't it be easier to settle? Because Derek doesn't deserve easy. Derek filed for divorce while you were in a hospital bed. Derek tried to take your children. Derek hid money and cheated on you and called you unstable to your own daughter. He doesn't get to walk away with a nice, clean settlement. He gets to stand in front of a judge and hear everything he did read out loud in a courtroom. That feels like revenge, Samira. No, she said. Revenge would be taking everything he has and leaving him homeless. This is justice. There's a difference. I thought about that. Justice versus revenge. One was clean, the other was messy. One was about truth, the other was about pain. I didn't want to cause Derek pain. I just wanted him to stop causing me pain. I wanted my children to be safe. I wanted to be free, so I didn't settle. We went to court. The courtroom was small and wood-paneled. Judge Holloway sat at the front, a woman in her 50s with gray hair and glasses on a chain. She looked tired, like she had seen too many families fall apart, but her eyes were sharp. She missed nothing. Derek sat at the table across from me. He was wearing a suit that didn't fit quite right. His face was tight. His hands were clenched on the table. Next to him sat his lawyer, a nervous man named Mr. Barlow who kept wiping his forehead with a handkerchief. Samira sat next to me. She was calm, prepared. She had 3 binders full of evidence. She had a timeline of events. She had witness statements. She had the police report from Derek's arrest at my apartment. She had the voicemails. She had the photos of Derek and Brooke. She had the forensic accountant's report on Derek's hidden accounts. She had my secret account statements. She had everything. Judge Holloway called the hearing to order. She looked at both of us over her glasses. This is a custody and financial hearing in the matter of Hart versus Hart. Both parties have submitted extensive documentation. I have read everything. I have questions for both of you. Mr. Hart, you'll go first. Derek stood up. He looked nervous. He had never been good under pressure. At home, he was a bully. In front of a judge, he was a scared little boy. Mr. Hart, you filed for divorce on the day your wife had emergency surgery. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, but I had been considering it for a long time. Her illness just made me realize that I couldn't wait any longer. You couldn't wait for her to wake up? You had to file while she was unconscious? Derek shifted his weight. I didn't think it mattered. She was going to find out eventually. Judge Holloway wrote something down. Mr. Hart, you also requested full custody of your children. Can you explain why you believe you should have full custody? Because my wife is unstable. She hid money from me for years. She lied about her income. She's been deceptive and manipulative. I don't think someone like that should have primary custody of young children. Samira stood up. Your Honor, I object. Mr. Hart's characterization of my client is unsupported by evidence. My client hid her income because her husband had a pattern of financial control that bordered on abuse. She was protecting herself and her children. Judge Holloway held up a hand. I'll allow Mr. Hart to finish. But Miss Samira, you'll have your turn. Derek continued. He talked about how I was secretive, how I spent hours on my computer at night, how I never told him about my freelance work. He made me sound like a criminal, a mastermind of deception. He didn't mention that I was terrified of him. He didn't mention that he had isolated me from my friends. He didn't mention the plate against the wall or the bruises on my arm. Then it was my turn. I stood up, my legs were shaking, my stomach ached, but I stood up straight and I looked Judge Holloway in the eyes. Your Honor, I hid my income because I was scared. My husband controlled every dollar I spent. He questioned every purchase. He made me feel like I was stealing from him if I bought a cup of coffee. I started freelancing because I wanted to have money for emergencies, for my children's future, for the day when I might need to leave. Why didn't you leave sooner? Judge Holloway asked. Because I was scared. Because he told me I couldn't make it on my own. Because he told me no one else would want me. Because he had broken me down so much that I believed him. It took a ruptured appendix and a divorce petition to wake me up. Judge Holloway looked at me for a long moment. Then she looked at Derek. Mr. Hart, is it true that you have been seeing another woman for over a year? Derek's face went red. That's not relevant to custody. I'll decide what's relevant. Answer the question. Yes, Derek said through clenched teeth. But that doesn't mean I'm a bad father. Judge Holloway turned to me. Mrs. Hart, what do you want? I took a deep breath. I want my children to be safe. I want them to grow up in a home without yelling and throwing and grabbing. I want them to know that their mother is strong enough to protect them. I want Derek to have a relationship with them, but only if he is willing to get help for his temper. I don't want revenge. I just want peace. The courtroom was silent. Derek was staring at the table. His lawyer was whispering in his ear. Judge Holloway wrote something in her notebook, then she looked up. I have made my decision. She spoke for 20 minutes. She went through every piece of evidence. She talked about Derek's hidden accounts and his infidelity and his arrest at my apartment. She talked about my secret income and why I hid it. She talked about Dr. Vargas's psychological evaluation. She talked about the children and what was best for them. And then she gave her ruling. Full legal and physical custody of the minor children is awarded to the mother, Amelia Hart. The father, Derek Hart, is granted supervised visitation every other Saturday for 4 hours. Supervision shall be provided by a court-approved professional at the father's expense. The father must complete a 12-week anger management program and a parenting class before any unsupervised visitation will be considered. Derek's face went pale. His lawyer put a hand on his arm, but Judge Holloway wasn't done. Regarding the financial aspects of this divorce, the marital home shall be sold, with proceeds split evenly. The joint bank account shall be split evenly. The father's hidden accounts shall be forfeited and added to the marital estate for distribution. The mother's separate account, earned entirely through her freelance work with no contribution from the father, is deemed separate property and remains solely with the mother. Derek stood up. That's not fair. She hid that money for years. Judge Holloway slammed her hand on the bench. Sit down, Mr. Hart. You hid money too. You hid an affair. You filed for divorce while your wife was unconscious. You showed up at her apartment drunk and pounded on the door while your children were inside. You do not get to lecture this court about fairness. My ruling stands. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Derek stood there, frozen. His lawyer pulled him toward the door. Samira hugged me. I started crying. Not sad tears, not even happy tears, just tears of release, like a dam breaking, like 11 years of holding my breath finally ending. I walked out of the courtroom. The sun was shining. The sky was blue. I called Carol and told her the news. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'm sorry, Amelia, for not believing you sooner, for taking his side. I should have known. You know now, I said. That's what matters. I drove to the apartment. Mia and Leo were there with a babysitter. When I walked in, they ran to me. They hugged me. They asked if they could stay with me forever. Yes, I said. You can stay with me forever. That was the beginning, not the end, the beginning of a new life. A life where I didn't hide my income or my dreams or my voice. A life where I worked from home and made more money than Derek ever did. A life where I planted tomatoes and sunflowers and watched my children grow tall and strong. Derek finished his anger management classes. He finished his parenting classes. After a year, the court allowed unsupervised visitation every other weekend. He took the kids to the park. He took them to the movies. He was still Derek, still controlling, still quick to anger, but he was being watched, and he knew it. Brooke left him as I knew she would. She didn't love him. She loved the idea of a man with a house and a credit card. When the house was sold and the credit card was cut up, she disappeared. Derek was alone. He called me once, late at night, drunk and crying. "I messed up," he said. "I messed everything up." "Yes," I said, "you did. Can we try again for the kids?" "No, Derek, we can't, but you can still be a good father, not for me. For them, focus on that." I hung up. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I felt nothing. That's the strange thing about healing. One day you wake up and the person who hurt you is just a person, not a monster, not a villain. Just a sad, broken human being who made choices that can't be unmade. Samira and I are still friends. She comes over for dinner once a week. Mia calls her Aunt Samira. Leo draws her pictures. She never got married. She says her clients are her children. I think she's happy. Marcus, the private investigator, retired for real. He sends the kids birthday cards with $20 inside. He calls me every few months to check in. He says I'm the bravest client he ever worked for. I tell him I'm not brave. I was just too tired to be scared anymore. The apartment is gone. I bought a house. A real house with a garden and a porch and a swing that Mia and Leo fight over. I still work from home. My consulting business has grown. I now make over $200,000 a year. I don't hide it. I don't need to. Sometimes I think about that hospital room. The beige walls, the parking lot window. The nurse named Margaret who handed me the divorce papers. I think about how close I came to breaking. How easy it would have been to sign those papers and give up. To let Derek take everything. To disappear into a life of quiet defeat. But I didn't. I signed the papers, yes. But I signed them knowing I would fight. I signed them knowing that the woman Derek thought he was divorcing was not the woman I really was. He thought he was divorcing a quiet receptionist with no money and no options. He didn't know he was divorcing a woman with a secret fortune, a brilliant lawyer, and a heart made of steel wrapped in love for her children. That's the thing about underestimating someone. You only see what they let you see. I let Derek see a wife who clipped coupons and asked permission to buy coffee. I let him see a woman who was afraid of his temper and his control. But underneath that, I was building something. Not an escape plan, not a revenge plot. A future. A future where my children would never know the fear I knew. A future where I would never be small again. My name is Amelia Hart. My husband didn't know I made $100,000 a year. He divorced me while I was in the hospital. And then he learned the truth. The truth was not the money. The truth was not the secret account, or the freelance business, or the courtroom victory. The truth was simpler and harder than all of that. The truth was that I had always been strong enough. I just needed to be pushed to the edge to find out. If you are listening this, and you are in a relationship where you feel small, where you feel controlled, where you feel like you are disappearing, please know that you are not alone. Please know that you are stronger than you think. Please know that the person who hurts you does not define you. Start a secret account. Build a private skill. Find a friend who will answer the phone at midnight. And when the time comes, walk away, not with anger, not with revenge, with the quiet knowledge that you deserve better. And that better is waiting for you on the other side of fear. I am Amelia Hart. I am a mother. I am a businesswoman. I am a survivor. And I am finally, completely, unapologetically free.